modern times, however, it has become a particularly devastating problem because it has a propensity for our youth. If there were an emblem of this disease, it would be the empty school desks of school children who would never return. Whoever it does not kill, it cripples, exacting a terrible toll on its victims and on society. It strikes down tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of Americans, and the specter of the disease makes people fear our vibrant cities and dread the large public gatherings that were once joyful. Our federal and state governments are strangely impotent against this disease. For decades, there has been little successful research that illuminates its cause or helps us prevent its deadly and insidious march. We try things to stop it, but it's like striking out against smoke and air. And then, finally, an unlikely hero emerges against this disease. It's the everyday American. Ordinary people, millions of them, join together in a remarkable grassroots effort. Everyone from small children in schools to elderly folks in churches help to raise awareness and galvanize action and coordinate fundraising and support research. This grassroots effort makes possible the work of a number of bright scientists. Those scientists land on the right approach to the disease, and finally, after nearly a century of being the most feared killer in the country, the epidemic is sharply reduced, and then ultimately it's eradicated. This is a real story. It's the story of the polio virus. And I believe it's similar to the story that we will tell our grandchildren about firearm violence. I know the analogy is not perfect. Most obviously, there was never a polio lobby the way that there is a gun lobby. The way polio broke down across racial and socioeconomic lines was quite different, with very different implications. But I think the analogy is helpful in underscoring a few fundamental points about our movement here. First is that our passion for the solution to this problem must be, and has been, and will continue to be unflagging, no matter how long this disease persists. As healthcare providers and scientists and public health advocates, we are obligated to seek an end to any cause of death and disability, and firearm violence is no exception. Other people out there have the option of saying that this topic is too politically heated, too divisive, too uncomfortable, or too complex to take on. But we do not. We can and must be preoccupied with the fundamental pathophysiology of this disease. There are small metal projectiles being propelled into bodies, shattering flesh and bone and vessels and organs and taking lives. This is our problem. It falls solidly in our domain. We can and must be preoccupied with the sheer public health impact of this disease. Nearly 117,000 people in this country are shot each year. 17,000 of them are children. 35,000 of them die. More than 20,000 of those deaths are self-inflicted. I come from a small town in Ohio called Fairview Park. It has 16,000 residents. You can fill my hometown twice over every year with the number of people lost to firearms, and you still have bodies left over. This is our problem. Who else's could it be? This movement has something powerful. Like polio, its vivid emblem is the empty desks across the country. Last week, I was in Denver giving a talk, and my hotel was located on a street called Columbine Street in a new development. And you know, it took me several days of staying there to realize that it was meant as a reminder of the school shooting 19 years ago. And the reason it took me so long was because I don't need a reminder I can never, ever forget. I think of it almost every time I take my kids to school. If you ever get discouraged in this fight, I just ask you to think of the empty desks at Columbine, at Virginia Tech, at Sandy Hook Elementary. And at Parkland. You could tell my kids are little. I can't even say that one. Unlike the many diseases you will encounter over the course of your careers, this one you can never quite get over. It never becomes routine. It never becomes normal or even a little tolerable. But there is good news. The good news is that as healthcare providers, as scientists, and as public health advocates, We know that with the right support and a little time, we can find the answer to this disease. We have found the answer to much harder problems. Just since I was a medical student, HIV/AIDS has gone from a death sentence to a chronic disease. Hepatitis C is curable. Entire faces can be transplanted. It's become possible to live for years with an external electric heart pump. We've created dramatic declines in motor vehicle fatalities and cigarette smoking. The creative problem solving is not what's at issue here. I don't think we can eradicate gun violence, but I know beyond doubt that we can sharply reduce it. Finally, as a country, I think we're coming to terms with the fact that we don't have to, and in fact we cannot wait on the government alone to fix this problem for us. Since the Dickey Amendment, there has been virtually no federal funding for research on how to mitigate this public health scourge. Our political leaders have not been able to coordinate the effort we need, paralyzed by the influence of the NRA. So once again, it has come down to the everyday actions of ordinary Americans. My friends and colleagues, life and death are in the hands of our grassroots effort. Are you up for it? Are you up for it?
Yes!
Every one of you here today is part of a deep and sustained movement across the country. What is so special about each one of you is that you are also the up-and-coming healers and scientists. You bring both passion and knowledge, commitment to the public, and to the process of scientific discovery. You will not just participate in the movement. Among you are the Salks and the Sabins who will bring pivotal change and lasting solutions. I am honored to stand among you. I hope to help lift you up and sustain your voices and your efforts for years to come. And I will just end in the famous words of Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Indeed.